Good afternoon to you viewers. You are watching the Midday News broadcasted live from the studios of Wefed Afrique TV in the Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The headlines. Polls open in Uganda today, January 14, 2021, with internet blackout after report that the country's communication regulator on Tuesday ordered internet service providers to shut down social media and messaging applications. In sport, on D-Day -3 to the African Nations Championship hosted by Cameroon, what are the chances of the host countries? Answers will be provided in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all for the headlines. Stay tuned. Good afternoon once more. This Thursday is the turn of Polycarp Banlock to take an oath before the Court of Appeal in Douala, Bonanjo. This ceremony to be held in the presence of traditional local administrative authorities. At present, the ceremony is yet to commence, but everyone is present. Gilbert Simi Evuna's turn was yesterday in the Central region in the presence of government authorities. During this ceremony, the president of the Appeal Court of the Central region called on presidents of regional councils to take an assessment of natural resources as a priority. 600 is today's number, and it is also the number of birth certificates that the Mboskuda Association has announced it will issue to out-of-school children in the Mbororo community in the Adamawa region. The establishment of these birth certificates is part of the ADRF project of the Regional Democracy Fund for Africa. Report from Sandrine Ndumbe.
Children under the age of 5 have no birth certificates. According to Japanese Son Tumba, head of agency of the National Office of the Civil Status Institute for the Far North, 402,000 students aged from 6 to 11 years old, so 35,000 in examination classes, are without birth certificates in the Far North. This data comes from information from the directors of the various schools in the region and from the compilation with that of the Regional Delegation of Basic Education for the Far North. Between 2018 to 2020, civil status offices in the Far North region recorded a functionality rate of their various center of 33 to 65%. According to the recent United Nations Children Fund report, about 42% of births in rural Cameroon go unregistered, and the high percentage rate remains particularly high within the Bororo community, where less than 10% of births are registered, a situation that persists in the country and makes thousands of Cameroonians unknown, illegitimate, and illegal in the eyes of the administrative authorities. It is therefore based on this observation that the Mboskuda Association has announced that it will issue 600 birth certificates for out-of-school children in the Bororo community in the Far North region. It should be remembered that this situation of the absence of a birth certificate is a glaring problem, and one of which even required a plea in the lower house of the parliament. And at the end of this plenary session on November 16, 2020, parliamentarians had proposed many campaigns ranging from awareness to censuses. To overcome this problem of the insufficiency of the main and secondary civil status centers, the parliamentarians have recommended to the government the launch of a master plan for the computerization of the national civil status system, which they had estimated at nearly 24 billion francs CFA, substantial allocation of financial resources to the National Civil Status Office, construction of civil status centers, and support for personnel from civil status centers. On the legislative and regulatory front, one of the measures was to extend the deadlines for the declaration of birth from 90 to 180 days or 6 months. And with regards to the supplementary judgment, the parliamentarians had recommended the harmonization of a reasonable cost of expenses related to the procedures in the absence of its fee. In addition, the National Assembly had recommended that in January 2021, the realization of the special operation of issuing birth certificates be practical.
Polls open in Uganda today, January 14, 2021, with internet blackout. This comes after reports that the country's communication regulator on Tuesday ordered internet service providers to shut down social media and, of course, messaging applications. According to a report from Reuters news agency, the Ugandan Communication Commission, that's the UCC, Executive Director Irene Sewankambo ordered telecommunications companies to immediately suspend any access and the use of social media and online messaging applications and platforms, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Signal, and Viber. Ugandan police say officers were deployed on rooftops earlier today in the capital, Kampala, while armored vehicles had started patrolling the streets since the beginning of the week. Update of the polls will be brought to you in this subsequent edition of the English Newscast. Combined forces of the Central African Republic military, Russian mercenaries, and the United Nations MINUSCA peacekeepers repelled attacks on Wednesday, January 13, from rebel groups Coalition of Patriots for Change, that's the CPC, some 9 to 12 kilometers from the capital Bangui, with the scattered shots seen residents of the affected Peka 9 and Peka 12 neighborhoods flee for their lives. The latest attacks comes after rebels launched an offensive vowing to march on the capital ahead of a last month's volatile presidential election, which also saw the government accuse former President François Bozizi of attempting a coup d'etat. Heavily armed Russian and Rwandan paramilitary troops had been dispatched to support the re-elected Touadera's government and regime under bilateral accords. On to Malawi, Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera decreed 3 days of national mourning after 2 members of his cabinet succumbed to COVID-19 on Tuesday, January 12. Local government minister Linson Belekenyama and the Minister for Transport Muhammad Sidiki Mia died in the capital Lilongwe. The two are the highest-ranking public officials so far to succumb to the virus in Malawi. We have entered the eye of the pandemic, Chakwera said during an address to the nation on Tuesday afternoon. He said the government was also considered declaring a state of emergency. Malawi has recorded 9,027 cases and 203 fatalities. The South African nation has confirmed 1,500 cases in the last 14 days alone. On Tuesday, the presidency said it was cutting visits to the State House to ensure the president's safety. Local daily, the nation reported. Weekly press briefings have also been suspended. In October, the president faced criticisms for not wearing a face covering when he met with his Tanzanian counterpart John Magufuli during a 3-day official visit to the East African country. This month, Chakwera was also criticized after he was seen without a face mask and shaking hands with American singer Madonna at his state residence in the capital, Lilongwe. On to the United States, Derek Chauvin, the policeman who killed George Floyd, will be tried in March. His former colleagues indicted for complicity will be tried next August. Sandrine Dumbe once more on this report.
Make justice despite the pandemic. The trial of former white police officer Derek Chauvin, charged with the murder of African-American George Floyd, will be open as scheduled on March 8, but his co-defendants will be tried separately in late August. A judge has ordered in a ruling made public on Tuesday. The prosecution and the defense had requested a postponement of the opening of the trial of the 4 police officers, in particular because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even in the largest courtroom in Minneapolis, it will be impossible to respect physical distancing rules in the event of a joint trial, admits Judge Peter Cahill in his ruling. However, he ordered that the trial of Derek Chauvin, 44, who had been kneeling for more than 8 minutes on George Floyd's neck on May 25 in the large city of the North, be kept on schedule. His former colleagues Alexander Quinn, Thomas Lane, and Tou Tao, accused of complicity, will be tried together from August 23, he added. The 4 men who were asking to be tried separately were all released on bail. The prosecution argued on the contrary for a single trial so as not to increase the trauma on relatives and the cost for taxpayers. In court documents, the defendants pleaded to have used reasonable force in front of a struggling man, but lines of fractures have appeared between them and they seem tempted to blame each other for the tragedy. George Floyd's ordeal, filmed and uploaded by a passerby, stirring emotion by beyond American borders, and led millions of people to take to the streets of the country to demand police reforms and end of the racial inequalities.
Thank you, Sandrine Dumbe, for that report. In sport, on D-Day -3 to the African Nations Championship hosted by Cameroon, What are the chances of the host countries? Answers will be provided in a moment. CHAN 2021, could we talk about Cameroon's performance? In order to properly prepare for CHAN 2021 in the fourth, Cameroon started its greening very early on October 25, 2019. It was under the aegis of Yves Clement Aroga at Tenso. The regrouping was done at the Center of Excellence of the African Football Confederation in Bankomo in the central region of the country. The coach had thus called 28 players for this first stage. Just after the end of this first regrouping, a new date and a list of players were published for the second part of the preparations. Coach Yves Clement Aroga still worked with his players from December 9 to 23, 2019 on behalf of the second training camp. For this camp, the number of players was increased from 25 to 35. Several friendly matches were in sight and won by the Lions. Still under the direction of Yves Clement Aroga, a third preparation course was organized from January 6 to 26, 2020 in Douala with 30 players this time. In the economic capital, Yves Clement Aroga and his foes will play friendly matches with local clubs Leopard, Avion and Bambutus FC from Buda. All A Prime Lions outing resulted in victories. The fourth camp convened by Aroga took effect on Tuesday, February 4, 2020 with 30 players. Just after this regrouping, the coronavirus came in to impose its laws and the players sent on confinement. The fifth post-COVID internship took place on October 25th at the Center of Excellence of the African Football Confederation in Bankomo, still under the leadership of Yves Clement Aroga. The Baron of the bench of the Lions A Prime will for the occasion summon 28 players in the week, and this was his last regrouping with the selection of local Lions. Yves Aroga was sacked the day after the rerun meeting against South Sudan. The Cameroonian technician, who was already recorded by Cameroonian football leaders, was not awaiting the official decision for his departure. This is how on Wednesday, October 21, 2020, Yves Clement Aroga was replaced by Martin Tungompile, despite an appreciable record showing only 1 defeat for 5 draws and 6 victories during his tenure at the head of the A1 national team of Cameroon. Experience on the Lions A bonus bench, yes, but since his arrival, the selection led by Clement Aroga and synthesized by Ntungo Pile has struggled to find its marks, a record far below its predecessor. An internship in Douala ended in 2-0 draws against Stade Renat and against UMS of Loum. In view of this in-spite preparation, the Cameroonian sports minister organized a mini preparation tournament and Cameroon opened it with a draw 1 goal everywhere against Uganda on January 1st, despite the presence of key players like Jacques Zoua Dahaguri. The Lions are currently struggling in the same tournament with Niger at the Annex Stadium No. 1 of Yaoundé. The 62-year-old new Lions A coach, who has yet landed in known terrain, is struggling to satisfy many Cameroonians who love the sport. However, since last February, he was one of the 4 technical supervisors assigned to the team. But also, above all, Martin Tungompile was at the head of this selection 5 years ago and had led Cameroon to CHAN 2016 in Rwanda. The 23 players summoned by the coach, we do not see any top 10 player. This team no doubt has some surprise in store for us. In preparation for the CHAN 2021 games, referees organized a seminar that kicked off on Monday to train referees that will assist in the games. The most visible innovation of this game remains the integration of women referees. The seminar that was closed today, January 14, will be brought to you during the 7 p.m. edition with more details. FIFA's president Gianni Infantino is expected in Cameroon today aboard a private jet where he will tour infrastructures that will host the CHAN Games. Barely 2 days to the commencement of a CHAN, Infantino will be in attendance for the opening match of the competition that will feature Cameroon versus Zimbabwe at the Amadou Ahidjoum Stadium in Yaoundé. Thank you for your kind attention, ladies and gentlemen. It has been essential African information from this end. Up next is Le Journal de 13h. Stay tuned and stay safe.